Hi guys, welcome back to this clown's garage. In this video I'll show you how to change a header gasket. Now this is a 3rd gen Camaro and I have dyno downs on this thing, which are 1 3/4 primary tubes in the headers. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually take the header bolts off and try to slip out the gasket. I'll probably just leave the front header bolt and the back header bolt. Just slide the gasket out. There should be hooks at the end of it, and take the rest of the header bolts out. This one is leaking because I actually have Percys aluminum dead soft gaskets on this thing. It's about a couple of aluminum gaskets sandwiched into one. They're really good. I had these on my previous motor for this actual motor with different headers on it for about maybe 8 years, and these things were freaking great. These sealed freaking beautifully. I do recommend these Percys aluminum soft dead gaskets. However, on this setup here, they leak. And it's apparent because when I put my hand over the exhaust flanges, over the primary tube flange over here, I could feel the air coming out. And you could hear it. Well, my car is really, really loud, so I know what to hear for, but if somebody else heard this, they wouldn't know they would be hearing. So I'll go ahead and take these off, and I got the Earls gaskets with the graphite foil inserts, which supposedly 1200% better supposed sealing, leak-proof type of sealing with those header gaskets compared to other header gaskets. So let me go ahead and undo these bolts here. These are another trick here that I did was I put smaller headed header bolts here. So just open up your Jags or Summit and get smaller headed bolts so you can actually fit the sockets in there beautifully like that with no issues. And also what you have to do with these header flanges are thick, so I had to get longer. These are ARP header bolts. I had to get longer bolts. And the person Dyno Don who made these headers recommends using these Earls. And they're on other people's cars that I know, and they're leak proof. They don't leak. So it's just wise for me to take that route right now, which isn't a big deal. So let me go ahead and undo these. If you see that last bolt right there, I just went from under here and I started unloosening that. That one you have to go underneath. You could try to do it from above, but it's a bitch. I like to do this one from underneath. Okay guys, I took them all out. This one here on the right side, I couldn't take it all the way because I had to take the actual header flange off to take that one out, the header bolt. This one I loosened a little bit, and the back one I loosened a little bit also. The back one I went from underneath. I just reached up. I also put a jack right underneath where the white pipe connects to the actual header just to hold it up. So when I slide this off, it's not going to go anywhere. So, let me see now. Should give me enough room to pull this thing off. Header gasket. And there you have it. And you see where the black marks are here? That's where it was leaking. Now I'm going to replace this with the Earls one. Now since the new gaskets I can't hang on the ends, I'm going to take off the front and the back header bolts. You could see here, You can hang the ends on this header gasket, but you can't on this. So I'm going to take off those 2 bolts at the end now and just pry the header this way. This is what I'm going to put in. These are Earls header gaskets, and they come with inserts that you could replace, so you don't have to buy the whole actual header gasket all the time. And these are Earls inserts. On my car, my exhaust ports are 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch. So these inserts are graphite foil aerospace type of inserts. And this is the first time that actual aerospace components were used on header gaskets. And that's what that looks like. How cool is that? And these go in here. Now before they go in, before I put them in there, I gotta scrape them out. So I'm gonna use this little scraper, razor blade scraper, and scrape out the old ones. This one here is good, and there's nothing on the actual face. And over here are the old ones, so what you have to do is simply pop them out like this. And these were D-port ones. So if your heads have D-ports, those are the inserts you have to put. These are my ports. Square. So once I pop it out, I'm just going to clean the surface. Sometimes some people cut the header flange like around here and over here, so it's better sealing for each one and it doesn't get warped. So if there's warpage, this will seal each individual one. So this is very good, by the way. What you have to do with these is you get something round, like this round punch, for example. Now what you have to do here is you have to go at the edges over here and bevel them. So you just go around each one and roll it in. So let me go ahead and do that. As you can see now, it's a square edge. You see 2 square edges? Let me roll one edge. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's nice and round over there. No edge. So when you're putting it back in, it's easy to insert it. It'll go, just drop right in. I'll show you what that looks like. Let me go ahead and finish this up. So this is what it looks like when it's installed. As you can see there, these are the inserts. Now what I found works best is, I'll test fit it first and see where it needs to actually be pushed in. And you take a punch and you just roll on it and keep on working it, roll on it on the top and then the side, then push and put it down the hole again. Yes, put it in the hole and push. And eventually it's going to be very slight, maybe a couple thousandths of an inch, where you can just push it in and it'll fit right in. So that's what it looks like. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and insert this in there and commence just tightening it down. Make sure everything's center. You might want to go over it one more time, all around the inserts, are centered. And just slip it in like so. Catch a bolt on one side. And if you're installing headers for the first time, use a pry bar to move the header around as you try to catch it and turn it. You might have to buddy help you do that. And that's the best way to put these headers on. Just going to tighten them down. I'm going to tighten down the middle one on this side and the right. In the middle and the right, I'm going to tighten that one down all the way as much as it goes, because that one the flange had to be out, the header flange, for this to come out. So I'm going to tighten that down all the way as much as it goes. Then I'm going to work my way out, and do the end ones at the end. Alright, I did driver's side. Now at the driver's side, like I said, I got smaller headed header bolts here to fit, because it's really tight with these 1 3/4 primary tubes over here. So I just put an open end at the end over there. In this case it was an 8, or it's a 5/16 head actually, and 8 also fits. 8mm. Now over here, what I'm going to do is, to take them out, same thing as before, I'm going to use the trick where you use one of these just to crack them off. Then over here, I'm going to use on the majority of them, I think only 2 I could use an open end on, box end, sorry, and the rest I could use this ratchet on. Now, the trick I'm doing here is I just put a deep socket onto a 1/4 inch extension. I'm going to put it over here, just use that as leverage. So, those are the tricks of the trades, people. Tricks of the trade. And this clown showed you firsthand how to do it. So let's go over here and crack. Actually, that I could get with the ratchet. Over here, this one I gotta use the box end. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. Okay, so that comes right off, just like that. These are ARP bolts, if you guys are wondering. Now, another telltale sign that you have a header gasket leak is you see here where it's black. That's from the exhaust. Also, like I said before, as the motor's running, since I have a huge cam in this car, and my car's really loud, I could barely hear anything. So what I do is I just go over here and put my hand over this as the motor's running. I could hear the pulsations of the exhaust hitting my hand over here. So that's another way to tell. Also, you could tell sometimes when you go underneath tunnels, you hear like a hissing or ticking noise every time the exhaust pulses, and that's also from here. That's another way to do it. Or you could also put, what some people like to do is take a little vacuum hose and stick it on your one of your ears, and the other end over here, just run across here to see if you hear anything. But I never did that way. I could usually tell just by either listening to it or just merely putting my hand around. But if you put your hand around, make sure you're not feeling the air from the radiator fan over here. So be very careful when you try to diagnose that. So I'm going to go ahead now and take the other bolts off. Ratchet. Okay, so that's in there. You can see how easy that was to come off. I had to use both hands there just to take that out. Alright, so I can go ahead and take this one out. Now the red stuff on there is just RTV, red RTV that I use. I like to use red RTV on my bolts. And that one here, you have to use a wrench for. So the other ones here, get out with the ratchet. Alright, I went ahead and took all the header bolts off. Because like I said, my header gasket doesn't have, the new one doesn't have the hooks at the end. And this is what I'm talking about. These hooks right here. One more thing I want to show you real quick. If you plan to have like a race car or a car that you work on a lot, this is my preference, and I'm not saying you should do it, but I like to take everything out of it. Like you can see, as you can see here, I don't have an AC. I don't have heat. I don't have anything here. So it's really easy to get to the bolts here. It's a piece of cake to work on. I work on this car a lot, so you know I want everything clutter free as possible. Now for those of you they're gonna say, oh, what about in the winter? Don't you get cold? Not really, because these headers supply the heat inside the car. Believe it or not, even though they're coated and everything, it still supplies a good amount of heat inside the car. So my personal preference, I like to have everything clutter-free and nothing in the way in a car that I actually work a lot on. So that's just my personal preference. Now let me go ahead. You could just pull this with your hand. If I could do this with one hand. Let's see. No, I'm gonna have to put the camera down and pull this out. Alright. Once I pull it out, I'll show you what it looks like. So I just pulled it out. I used one hand to pry on to pull the headers and the other one just to pull this out. You see where it's black? That's all exhaust gases escaping, and it was leaking from there. You see the hooks over here I'm talking about? Now the new gasket that I'm putting in doesn't have the hooks, so I'm just gonna have to put it in, and with the header actually pried off the car. So it's the same as the other side. I'm just gonna go ahead and tighten this down. What I'm gonna do is, since I don't have three hands here, I have three legs but I don't have three hands. Sorry folks. Yes ladies, you heard correctly. So what you gotta do is I'm just gonna put it in, and then with one hand I'm gonna move the header up and down, while the other I'm gonna have holding a header bolt, and just, you know, as I'm moving the header up and down, see if I could align the holes together with the head and just start threading by hand. Now do not use a ratchet to actually tighten this down to first start the threads on the bolt, because you could cross thread it, then you have other issues. You're gonna have to retap the head, or in this case it's aluminum, so you probably have to you have to helicoil it, put threaded inserts in there because it's soft aluminum. One quick thing when tightening down header bolts, for example, do not put the bolts all the way in until you catch all the threads. Now, this is a prime example here. You see this header tube, this primary header tube. This is the passenger side of the car, and this is the front of the car over here. You cannot put this one in without there being some space in here. So if you had tightened all this down, this would not fit in here because the primary tube's in the way. Alright? Same thing as with that one. You need to be a little more out. So whatever the primary tube's in the way over here, you can't fit a socket. You have to fit a wrench. You have to be very careful to thread these in before everything gets bolted on. So that's your little quick tip for when installing these. Now as far as tightening the bolts, start in the middle. In this case it's a small block Chevy. So I would start with this one, then tighten this one. Then come out to this one, then tighten this one, then this one, and that one. And keep on doing that. I'll do this couple, like more, maybe 3-4 times. Keep on going back and forth on all of them, going from in to out. Or you could do 1, 2, then 1, 2, then 1, 2. You can do it that way too. There's different ways of doing this. But you'll notice, as you go down, say these all you tighten everything down once, you go back in the middle, you tighten this back down, this is going to be a little loose. Then you tighten that. Then this is going to be a little loose again. Then you tighten that, then tighten that. So as you're going back and forth, you'll realize that it's a little loose. Also, you could tell by looking at the flange inside if there's any clearance in there. Make sure the clearance is even going from front to back on the flange. That's also how you know if you tighten everything down properly. Alright, I want to mention a few things about header bolts. When you're measuring in how deep to go into the head for the threads to catch, a good rule of thumb is to actually have the thickness of the bolt, and you want to go in at least that much for it to catch inside the head. Now, each application is different, and the best way I do it is just stick a pick in there inside the hole and see how deep it goes. Now I say that because you have to make the flange onto the head, and each flange has different thicknesses. So, and like I said, you have to go in at least the thickness of the bolt. So that's one thing to look at when choosing the length of bolts. Another thing is I have ARP bolts, stainless steel on my heads, and they're going into aluminum heads. And usually when you put if you put stainless steel bolts into aluminum, you throw them into aluminum, they tend to gall. So you would want to put anti-seize in other instances where you do that. But when it comes to header bolts, I like to put RTV, red RTV. Something like this high temperature from Permatex. That's what I put on my bolts. One, so they don't back out easily, and two, to protect the threads from galling inside the cylinder heads, the threads. Now this is another type of header bolt, and this takes an Allen over here and the head, so you could turn it on tight spots. And you can also put a little wobbly Allen in there if you want like a little more of an angle. That's another type of header bolts. Also, they have the locking stage A fasteners, which you put the header bolt down, you tighten it, then you put a little clip on it, and it rests on the primary tube and it won't back out. It won't unthread. Now that's good. It also depends. It depends on the header gasket too, because some header gaskets you have to drive the car, then retighten them, drive it again, retighten them. You have to go through a couple of heat cycles because the header gasket might shrink a little bit. So it all depends on the header gasket and your setup for what kind of header bolts to go with. Alright, so once you're done, take it out for a spin, drive around a couple days, come back here, see if you can retighten them. If they don't tighten back down, that means you're good. So, also here for any leaks, fan. So that concludes my video on header gasket installation. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. You know you want to. Also, check out my other videos if you like cars like these or any type of cars. Also check NewYork3rdGen.com. That's my car club. And underneath there's boxes you could check to share me, to like me, to use me, and while you're down there you can do whatever you want to me down there. So thanks for watching.